hello there. Once again, you hear that music, and it's Pat Fahey, your favorite mandolinist, and this is Megatrends, and we're going to be amazingly having a show that just continues to evolve, even just to before showtime. Uh, the show it was on Facebook, that you could have seen that, and is what about comedy and tragedy? How do they mix in this crazy, period? And you know, cast ourselves forward to 2033 and look back, and will MAGA evolve? Will the voting, will whites who have become the voting minority accept diversity? And will we end Citizens United and get money out of politics? And will we get a national health care system? And will we evolve? Will we survive this lunacy that we're in right now? So, anyway, my name is Pat Fahey, and I'm your, ongoing producer of Megatrends. And so it turns out, let me see if I can find, oh, that's right, I got to come all the way over here. We're having like some technical things. Is it to the left I go to get to oh yeah, it is the left. Okay, got it. So we've made some adjustments, Jason and I, today for Megatrends. I have an interview. We're going to start out with an interview with the incredible 5-star, musician and singer-songwriter Carol Denny. And so that's a Zoom that I did just this morning, and she just got back from West Virginia. But it turns out that I published on Facebook today this theme, but it's going to change now. So so Carol Denny, going to do an interview with her, and she's returned from West Virginia. So we're going to start there and take it from there. So later we're going to hear about the lost cause from Dr. Wilfred Cox. She's and she talks about the so-called lost cause. The South lost the Civil War, but won the narrative. And it comprises of 3 things: nostalgia for the past, 2, resentment of the government, and 3, resentment for non-white people. Well, there's your MAGA movement, in essence. So, right now we're seeing it focused on immigrants, but it focuses on the incarceration of African Americans, and in our prison system, for instance, it's evolved into the new Jim Crow recapitulation of the old Jim Crow South in the 19th century. The U.S. prison system, by far the greatest number of incarcerated individuals by any country on earth, places people of color in a slavery-like system, systemized in the current unregulated private prison system, where prisoners are being used as exploited labor. And the New York Times has documented that those incarcerated in ICE raids are forced to pay for their phone calls or working janitorial maintenance work and being paid $1 a day. And the second one is, and we're going to also hear a little bit from our interview, the horror of RFK Jr. promoting vaccine hesitancy. The predictable consequences have now metastasized from East Texas, that from the middle of this past year, when things started there in May, where measles cases exploded there. But measles doesn't distinguish between party affiliation, but data shows that red states are impacted at a much higher rate. It's correlated to higher rates of anti-vax disinformation and vaccine hesitancy. And so lower rates of vaccinations are directly correlated with higher rates of measles, COVID, and other immunological diseases. In the Washington Post this morning was the South Carolina's measles outbreak, which is accelerating in the wake of Thanksgiving, travel, and a lack of vaccinations. And you can read about that, and we're going to get back to that later. But first, let's have this lovely interview with Carol Denny and myself. And I think you'll all the questions you had about what's happening in West Virginia, it's probably like the same question that's happening in a lot of red states. People having to pull together out of poverty, and they've always done that, and of course they've lost their rural hospitals. So she's going to talk about that. So let's get to that right now. The interview with. Okay, well, thank you for tuning in. We're in the middle of our show here on, which will be Thursday, which is today, actually today, later on today. And I'm going to be interviewing my longtime friend, Carol Denny, um, social and political musical activist, extraordinaire, five-tool activist, and songwriter and singer. And she has we're going to be chatting with her and talking about her new CD, which is called "Pregnant and in Jail," and it has a bunch of great songs we have to ask her about. And so, Carol, is there? Um, well, hello to our national audience. You say hello to West Virginia. Hopefully, people are listening in West Virginia and Southern Cal and all the places that people know you. So, how are you feeling this morning? Are you doing okay?
Doing great.
Okay.
Thanks for asking. How are you?
Well, I drank some coffee, so I'm on the plateau, so I'm glad we got the our Zoom link connected and everything. So I have to we had a little rendezvous yesterday, and I was able to get this CD, and I guess we could work it backwards. You're going to be playing very soon. That is this Saturday.
Yeah.
You want to talk about that
Oh,
a
just
bit?
briefly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Many of you who are in the Bay Area have heard of Strings, and it's a converted laundromat that's been going about 25 years under the care of Joey Lent, whom I met on the street. We were both people who busked around the area, so we've been friends
Mhm.
ever since. And it's dedicated to quality acoustic music. It's a
Hmm.
great hall. So there's a kind
That's
of
this
benefit and holiday party this Saturday. The show starts at 8.
8 o'clock.
It's 6320 San Pablo Avenue, but you're going to have to drop my name, Carol Denny, and say you're a friend of Carol Denny and you're invited by Carol Denny, and then they'll let you in. So it's
Let's say that address one more time. Six
6320
six three two
San Pablo
zero
Avenue.
San Pablo.
Yeah, right near Alcatraz and San Pablo.
Okay.
It's a
So
lovely place. It's a great hall to hear music really, really well. And there's a jam afterwards. So bring your instrument if you'd like to play.
okay then. So I wanted to ask you about, since we talked last night about just recently got back from West Virginia, so I hope we can talk about that. You can give people an insight about what's happening in one of the most the reddest states, and yet you seem to be able to zoom into uh, cross connecting with with folks there. So give us a little insight into what's happening way inside West Virginia from your point of view, and also if you could show your we could talk about if I may read your the
Pregnant and in jail. It's my new
pregnant in
CD.
jail. That's her, and she's got songs like, well, kale, kale. Why so much kale? That's like one of her most famous one. And the shit I left behind me. Don't we all have that song to write? And 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 um pregnant and in jail. And we're going to talk about that. And I'm meeting her with a Russian spy. We both have stories like that. So it says, thanks to stellar players who assisted with this project where lunacy and hilarity meets despair. Most of them I've worked with for years, and the mariachi crew was the cherry on top. So my recordings have been scrabbled between cancer treatments in this case and relearning to use my right arm, having broken my neck in an assault. And there's not much left of my voice, but I'm grateful to still be able to get my point across.
I can
So
still croak it out. Yeah.
good. So, and that involves Mark and Michelle Nelson, Wally McClelland, Bruce Ziff, James Nelson, Tony Phillips, Scott Thompson, and the multiple instrumentalist Stephen Strauss for their patience and kindness and creativity, and then
Yeah.
Roger Tolleroth for his sense of humor. So now we'll owe the family,
Some,
friends,
some
and
of you
players
will
in West.
know Roger's name. He's the one who wrote the beautiful waltz called Josephine's Waltz, or there's a vals in Swedish. And we wrote crazy words. I wrote crazy words to it called Josephine's Biscuits
Hmm.
and got his permission. I would be glad to pay him for it. But once he heard the song, he just couldn't stop laughing. And he said, just take it away. Enjoy. So he also plays English concertina. So that just made me laugh. Very few people play English concertina, but the two of us do. So
Well, since we're
anyhow,
going to be moving toward the, the West Virginia perspective, you say here that you want to thank forever owe to the family and friends and players in West Virginia who helped me restore my sense of place. Could you expand on
yeah.
what that means?
Nothing is more confusing than to be sued for $250,000 by the UC Regents for writing a song. But that happened to me. And the UC Regents continued to play bizarre roles in local and national politics, as many of you know. So once you've been targeted by then, you start wondering about your sense of place. I do have family in West Virginia,
Hmm.
and I never expected a bright red state, as you put it, to have any welcome for me, but boy, did they.
Hmm.
And it's been wonderful traveling through there, playing music there, meeting the people there. And you just, I think of that bright red state description, which is true right now, as just a great measure of the failure of the Democratic Party because it was a hardcore union state. It was the place to go for Democratic votes for so much of its very young life, one of the newest states, because it was born in the Civil War. It decided it wanted to stick with the Union. So to this day, when I say I'm going to West Virginia, they'll like people lean forward and they'll say, "What part of Virginia?" Because they don't realize there's a state called West Virginia. It cracks me up, but it's full of people you would have everything in common with, and they were disappointed in the Democratic Party. I don't think there's anybody I know who can't understand that. So I start with that perspective, and I love hearing about their lives. It's a very poor state, but that usually means people coalesce, they work together, they sing together, they pull together in ways that I know the neighborhoods I grew up in East LA were the same way. Many languages spoken and everybody pooling their cultural influences and celebrations. So you find a lot of that in West Virginia. There's one town there called Helvetia that is Swiss German, and people speak German, and then we'll break into English, and then we'll break into another dialect of Swiss, and it's amazing. West Virginia is a very surprising place, and the music is unique. I began to study the fiddling traditions there, and I just keep going back. I'm so enchanted with it.
So, I guess if were we to play a song before and after and during this interview, what three would you prefer and in what order?
Oh, I don't know. Play Bravery. People really like that one. They also really like uh what's the one?
I
Uh
guess the one that's more thematic to what we're talking
Going
about.
south on 79 is about the turnoff toward the mountains in
Okay.
West Virginia. That's a beauty.
All right then.
And what's a little bit of poison? That's a good one.
All right
Yeah.
then. Then that'll I'll do that.
Yeah,
With
there's
that.
three.
So please could you please elaborate on your meeting with a Russian spy?
Well, there was a point in the, I guess, the first Trump administration, where it seemed like it was all about like who was a Russian spy and were Trump administrative people
Oh right.
meeting with Russian spies, and it reminded me of the 50s when there really was a concern about every little flashing light going overhead. They were worried might be a Russian satellite watching us, and that there was a stream of paranoia running around. So I wrote a song that was about a woman who's never seen the guy, but she knows he's there, and she's making all these assumptions about what he's like because he's a Russian spy. And so he can't be overt in any way, but she knows he's there. So it's sort of making fun of also that 50s thing, going to the chapel and we're going to get married. The assumptions that women make about how he really loves her. And it's just funny. So I happened to play it when I was in West Virginia to a guy who had just traveled in Russian territory as part of a singing crew from another Russian territory. And he just looked at me and came up to me afterwards and gave a long talk to me about how dangerous it was for me to sing this song. It would be dangerous in his territory to sing the song that I sang, but I just kept making jokes until I realized he was serious and was worried about my safety. So I think of that as a little bit funny.
Well, you know, I wanted to ask you about what is the status of public health. So in your picture here, I noticed that it has in the background, you're seeing in the front steps of, of city halls, or when it says and Medicare for all. I was wondering about, I have one of the stories I'm doing today in today's Megatrends is the measles outbreak, that's now accelerating in South Carolina. And it's RFK gives me a headache just even looking at or listening to.
It's
So
a
how are
tragedy.
people doing in Westford? People sensibly vaccinating, or what's the deal? Is it things? Has there been any health issues there?
I couldn't say that. People are very confused. They get a lot of conflicting information. And the first thing that happened after Trump was, elected was about 5 regional hospitals closed within the
Rural
week.
hospitals, right?
Yeah. So that is really all that most people have. As a matter of fact, my uncle Bob had and my aunt Betty started a string of medical clinics when they came back from World War II. And so still today, there's a string of little tiny clinics, and these are a little different. They're independent and they're just, wonderful healthcare workers, doctors and nurses, and people who do other kinds of care will go there for at least 2 days a week. People can come into this little town because a lot of people live really, really far away down long dirt roads. So they can at least come there and get some kind of care and get hooked up to come in next week for medications and stuff like that. Some of those are still going, but it's very tough. You can imagine if you want to start a business and the land is really cheap in West Virginia, but try to imagine talking your employees into living in a place where healthcare is so iffy and schools are the same way. It's very hard to get to the schools and they keep closing the schools because the state won't fund them and then they're harder to get to. And all you need is a foot and a half of snow and ain't nobody trying the
Mhm.
roads. So it's very tough. It's very tough, but the people are amazing. And like I said, what they'll do, what they did in the 55 strong teacher strike was just start little places where people could drop off their kids and real teachers from their real school would be there to kind of try to keep them occupied and keep the school day going as best they could during the strike. I've never seen such a well organized strike in my life.
A
But
teacher strike is called
55 strong was the
55 strong.
55 strong was the slogan because there are 55 counties in West Virginia,
Thank
and
you.
every single county was a part of that strike. And when they were offered their first offer, they said, "Are you including the lunch ladies and the bus drivers?" And they made sure absolutely everybody was included in the agreement.
That is, thank you. I appreciate you that people can get to know about that so they can Google that literally
Oh,
just
yeah.
50. It's called 55, uh,
55 strong, the West
55
Virginia
strong. Just Google
teachers
55
strike.
strong
Yeah,
and you can read all about that. And I encourage people, I mean, watchers and viewers to do
yeah.
precisely that.
It was
Also,
wonderful.
do you have a website?
I
Uh,
do.
oh,
Carol Denny, Denny with a EY.com. And it's all kinds,
Denney. So
yeah,
folks, Denney.
caroldenny.com. And it's full of all kinds of stuff and links to goofy crankies. I make little paper movies of some of my songs and stuff. And there's loads and loads of opinion pieces.
Mm. CarolDenny.com.
Yeah.
Okay,
So
okay,
I
there you
do a lot of writing and I'm the founder of the Pepper Spray Times. So you'll find
Yes.
all of the issues of the Pepper Spray Times going back decades. So
And you too could get a copy is sent to you of the Pepper Spray
you
Times,
can
and as I
contact me.
am
Yeah,
honored
it's
to
easy
get
to
to.
contact me through my website. So yeah.
So, as we close, we have about another minute or two. We're going to be playing Carol songs from Carol prior to and after this interview.
Thank you.
And today's actually theme is the is comedy in the age of tragedy a thing? But the universe appears to have a sense of humor, but the joke was on us with the passing of AI Atlas. And, by 2033, will MAGA vanish? Will white voting majority minority accept diversity by that time? So will we end money in politics, undo Citizens United, and oust APAC Democrats? So things are so awful right now that the best we can do is sort of project into the future and look back, and because one day people are going to write about all this crap that
Yeah.
we're going through right now.
Well,
And
we're writing about it right now. Those
they
of us
are
who
right,
write
yeah.
comedy and songs and stuff. And here's to all of you cultural workers, as they put it these days.
Right.
Just keep going, because that's sure what Pat's going to do and what I'm going to do. There's an enormous amount of opportunity in the tragedy in front of us right now.
The light at the end of the tunnel. We got to keep our eyes on the prize. I've had to resist my urge to move to New Zealand, and say, no, we got to fight this fight here, because the whole world is saying, come on, America, fight that fight, poop that
Yeah.
Trump turd out of your system, we got you, I know that sooner or later
What
you're
an
gonna,
elegant way to put it, Pat. Yes.
right. So, all right, well, we're going to
Thank you so much.
well, you're welcome, and thank you for, and we'll do this again. Maybe we can actually do a live show. We can invite you to do a live, you and I, play.
I'd love to. We could play. We have a
Yes,
song called I'm Sleeping in My Tesla.
that's right. So we'll see you on Saturday at Strings, and
Sounds good.
thank you for, hanging out with me for a second, and we'll see you Saturday. Okay.
My
Thank
pleasure.
you, Carol Denny. CarolDenny.com. Go there.
Bye-bye.
Okay, so there you have it. So and so we're going to continue with that theme. I know, like what's happening on the ground, and you could substitute the West Virginia with Oklahoma, with Kansas, with just any part of the United States. People are just suffering all over, uh, and people are getting on board. They realize what's happening with public health in the United States. Well, by the way, it turns out like we're going to moving to uh, uh, some of the biggest jokes of a presidency in U.S. history. But before we do that, I just wanted to bring out the story that was happening today in the Washington Post, about what's happening in South Carolina. The measles outbreak is accelerating in the wake of Thanksgiving travel and a lack of vaccinations. And an epidemiologist for the state's Department of Public Health warned Wednesday after authorities traced a sizable outbreak to a church in the state's northwest. Of the 111 measles cases recorded in that area known as the upstate region, 105 of them involved people who were unvaccinated, while 3 involved those who were partially vaccinated. Imagine, almost 100% of them, like 99%, if you were vaccinated, you're fine. So the state epidemiologist Linda Bell said that in a news briefing, and a 1 dose of the vaccine is 93% effective against measles, while the full 2-dose regime is 97% effective. So, according to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, at least 254 people have been placed in quarantine as of Tuesday, 16 of whom are in isolation. And the DPH, the Department of Public Health, said in a news release that 27 new cases have been reported since Friday, bringing the total to 114. So accelerating is an accurate term. That's a spike in cases we're concerned about. And she added that South Carolina has lower than hoped for vaccination coverage, for the same reason that Carol was mentioned about the people in West Virginia, because, vaccine hesitancy, all you need, it's a matter of public confidence. Your leaders need to say, help you with confidence that get the vaccination, get your kids vaccinated. But if there's hesitancy, you can see the consequences. And so, by the way, this started out, it was traced back to a recent outbreak at the Way of Truth Church in Inman, South Carolina, an ironic name, and that's where they had a congregation. And from there, that's where the source of the measles outbreak was, because, the so-called Way of Truth Church, told people, contributed to the vaccine hesitancy, so everybody was unvaccinated. So anyway, nationally, the CDC has recorded almost 2,000 cases of measles. It's a highly contagious and potentially deadly virus across 42 states. That's as of Tuesday. And more than half occurred in children. And in South Carolina, 20 of the upstate cases involved children under the age of 5. So that's why the whole idea is to get vaccinated when they're as newborns. And so, that's a story that you can read about in the Washington Post. So, and by July 7th, the U.S. had the highest recorded number of cases, 1,277, since the virus was declared officially eliminated in 2000. Officials say the true toll is much higher because many families are not testing their children, and some physicians may not recognize the once rare condition, according to the Washington Post. So the national inoculation, by the way, please pass this on, that rate for measles, mumps, and rubella, that's the MMR vaccine, measles, mumps, and rubella, has dropped in recent years, and uniquely in the United States among any major country in the world, and particularly since the beginning of the pandemic, and an uptick of vaccine misinformation, and from public officials, including President Trump and his pick for so-called health secretary RFK Jr. So even a small decline in vaccination can have significant increase in the likelihood of the outbreak. So anyway, so we're going to get back to that, but we're going to have a little break, in this. The next few videos are actually a way to take a break and laugh a little bit. So let's check this very first one out. I think you're going to enjoy this.
Sorry if the files drop looking tricky. Pam and Cash got a bit ricky. If I look guilty, it's no biggie to answer your question. Quiet, picky, quiet. Quiet, picky, quiet. Quiet, picky. Names in the margins, reading big wiggy. I'll flip-flop and get zig-ziggy. Broads in the press pool, getting a little diggy. I've got your answer right here. Quiet, piggy, quiet. Quiet, piggy, quiet. Quiet, piggy. Boing, 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 boing.
So there you have it. Should we watch that again? That was so funny. Should give it another little run? Or should we go to the next one? Let's just go to the next one. All right. Yeah. So, hey, watch a replay of Megatrends if you want to see that again. But that's quiet, piggy. So let's watch this next one here.
Okay, you friggin' vultures. What dumbass questions do you have for me today? And remember, you're lucky we're even letting you ask questions.
Is the president using the justice system for his own personal vendettas against the Democrats?
Okay, first of all, fix your tone. Second of all, if the president hates someone, you should hate them too. That's how this works. Okay? Like, for example, the president hates you. And honestly, given all the attitude you just gave me, same. Next question.
The president says he will release the Epstein files, but critics are concerned that the documents will be heavily redacted.
If you were in the Epstein files, wouldn't you want them redacted too? Seriously, what kind of woke rat brain question was that? Embarrassing. Next.
Will the president be apologizing for calling a reporter piggy?
Would you all rather he say stuff like that behind your backs?
I think we'd all rather you not say that kind of stuff at all.
Oh, really? I guess you also hope that he does the things that he says he's going to do? I mean, like, grow up, piss brains.
Please don't call me that.
That's what you sound like. It's embarrassing. Grow up, loser. And while you're at it, why don't you take a shower? Because everyone here says you stink.
No, they don't.
Yes, they do.
No, they don't.
Yes, they
No,
do.
they don't.
Next.
Do you think saying that Democrats should be hung could incite violence?
Oh my God. It's like you can't even threaten people with death anymore. Seriously, everyone, lighten up.
Could you elaborate on that?
Do you want to die? Do you? I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Or am I? Last cue and hurry up.
After a long day of gaslighting and spinning the truth to fit your narrative,
Mhm.
how do you live with yourself?
I'm very pretty.
Yeah. So, what'd you think, Jason? Oh my God. So I'm glad that someone's putting out stuff like that. I mean, you got to laugh, if not cry, you know. So, anyway, I wanted to, by the way, you could please, we were unable to play music on Carol's CD. So do go to caroldenny.com and click on some of the songs. You can listen to them and actually you can, if you like them, buy them and buy a CD from Carol Denny. I think we have a one coming up. It's from a Wall Street Journal article. Make money, not war. The joke's on us. I think what's our next one that we have coming up? Or is that a Wall Street Journal article I should read? Oh, okay. Oh, is that right? Is that the one? Let me see if I can come back to. So what we have coming up, we were unable to play this video by Dr. Karen Cox, and it was basically a historian, and she's got 4 books out, and it's about, if I may read about that. Let me see, where is this? Oh yeah, here it is. It's called The Lost Cause. The Lost Cause. And and the question was, did the South lose the war? And the South lost the war, but won the peace, or they won the narrative. Though this narrative called The Lost Cause, it's a way for Southerners to justify the defeat, but the cause was still, it's a way for Southerners to reimagine themselves as heroes in a battle that was bigger than themselves. Their heroes weren't traitors to the nation, but they were patriots. And the Lost Cause never left us. Rather, the Lost Cause reinvented itself over time. The original Lost Cause is evident in the manga, movement. And the Lost Cause is based on 3 things: nostalgia for the past, resentment of the government, and resentment for non-white people. And so right now we're seeing it focused on immigrants, but its historical focus was on African Americans and Chinese and Japanese and anybody who was not white. But it's sort of recapitulates the 19th century. With the they call it the new Jim Crow. And in our prison system, incarceration is placing them into slavery-like system in the private prison systems. And there's been many stories that you've seen and you can see, you can research about it, what's going on in our private prison system right now. And where they, basically are exploiting people's labor. That's how they get to pay for their phone calls. And they can't get their phone calls to their family unless they're paid $1 a day. So that's been in Reuters and New York Times and Wall Street Journal. It's been in the Atlantic and in Mother Jones. So and also in foreign press, a lot of foreign press from around the world are just looking on in horror, about what's going on. And so by the way, this is Dr. Karen Cox. Okay, Karen Cox. She's a historian. She's got 4 books, and one of them is Dixie Daughters. About the United Daughters of the Confederacy. And again, you can just copy this down and Google those to find. And the second book, by the way, the first one is Dixie Daughters. The next one is Dreaming of Dixie, about how Hollywood treated race in the 1920s, 30s, 40s, 50s in advertising and music and so on. And then she has a novel, called Goat Castle. It's about murder and rape in the Gothic South. And then the 4th book is No Common Ground, about the Confederate monuments in the ongoing fight for racial justice. And Karen Cox, historian, you can go to either YouTube or Instagram, and that's at Karen Cox Historian. Just no spaces. Karen, KarenCox Historian. And so, okay, well, let's go to I think we have a next video, and we got that coming up right as we speak. And
Chinese influencer on TikTok who speaks English has made a fascinating clip directed at the American people. And the first time I saw it, I said to Chris, we got to play this for Professor Mearsheimer. We got to have his comments on it. So it's a 1.5 minutes long, but it's in English and it's fascinating. And I want to discuss it with you after we watch it together. Chris, cut number 20.
They rob you blind and you thank them for it. That's a tragedy. That's a scam. That's why I'm saying this right now. Americans, you don't need a tariff. You need a revolution. For decades, your government and oligarchs ship your job to China, not for diplomacy, not for peace, but to exploit cheap laborers. And in the process, they hollowed out your middle class, crushed your working class, and told you to be proud while they sold your future for profit. And yes, China made money, but we used it to build roads, lift millions out of poverty, fund healthcare, raise living standard. We reinvested in our people. My family also benefited from it. What did your oligarchs do? They bought yachts, private jets, mansions with golf course driveways. They manipulate the market, dodged tax, and poured billions into endless wars. And you get stagnant wages, crippling healthcare costs, cheap dopamine, debt, and flagged wave property made in China while they pick your pocket. For 40 years, both China and the United States benefit from the trade, the manufacturing, but only one of us use that wealth to build. This isn't China's fault. This is yours. You let this happen. You let the oligarchs feed your lies while they made you fat, poor, and addicted. Now they blame China for mess they made. I don't think so. I don't think you need another tariff. You need to wake up. You need to take your country back. I think you need a revolution.
The one correction I would make, I realize a lot of this is ideological, is we haven't spent billions on useless wars. We've spent trillions on useless wars. But take it from there, Professor Mearsheimer.
Well, if you
If
listen,
that young man were your student in your class and he stood up and gave that minute and a half statement, how would you respond?
I would tell him I basically agree with him. I think he's correct. And I think, by the way, that this is a message in large part that Trump made as a candidate before the 2016, 2020, and the
A young
Well, that was an unfortunate canard that John Mearsheimer went to. I mean, I have a lot of respect for John Mearsheimer, but he predicted in 2012 that the full-scale invasion between Ukraine and Russia wouldn't happen. And obviously, he was wrong, but people still worship him as actually, on some occasions, he said it would happen, and other occasions he said it wouldn't. So that's the same model of the typical fortune teller, to touch all the bases so that you can never be wrong. On February 15th, 2022, John Mearsheimer predicted that he believed that the crisis was over and that Russia would not invade Ukraine. And he later claimed that he was surprised by the invasion, that he had assumed that Vladimir Putin had learned from America's mistake in Afghanistan. Oh, well. So, little comment from Bucky Fuller, Buckminster Fuller, it's now highly feasible to take care of everybody on earth at a higher standard of living than anyone in the past and any previous century has ever known. It's no longer has to be about you and me. Selfishness is unnecessary. War is obsolete. It's a matter of converting our higher technology from weaponry to livingry. Yeah, he spells out livingry. It's from Buckminster Fuller, and really, that's the transformation. We gotta flip the script from the billionaires and just the cocaine of wealth that enters their mind, and then the view that they're now so wealthy that it must have been preordained by God. Forgetting that all the workers that made them wealthy. They all the roads that were built by taxpayers, all the electricity grids that helped them in their factories. All the things, all the infrastructure that was there, all the universities that were there for them to gain their knowledge. They just somehow forgot all of that. Like they did it now all themselves. And so that's what happens to super wealthy people. They live in a dream world. They live behind their own little enclaves. And then, of course, they're so wealthy, they surround themselves with people who tell them everything they want to hear, because if you tell them something that they don't want to hear, you're fired, you're out. So, of course, we have a president that's the model for that, but he's not alone. There's a whole, things didn't happen overnight. Now, this has been going on for a long time. If you do any historical reading, even about, say, going back to the New Deal or what was happening before the New Deal, what were the attitudes of the wealthy, before in the 1920s, and of course, all those things I was just mentioning, everything is preordained. They're supposed to be that way. They have their own theology of wealth. That goes back to the 1840s when capitalism, the big titans of capitalism arose, and there were no rules. And it's been a century and a half of suffering, and it's only been since the New Deal where workers gained a foothold, and the kind of capitalism that came about was a more it's one where they have like profit sharing became something that was like a big deal in the 1960s, 70s, 80s. It became a thing that was people, the so-called enlightened corporations were saying, oh, that's, here's something that if we, we can still gain wealth, great wealth, and still do profit sharing, and so what happened to all that? Well, all we have to do is look at what happened. We can start anywhere. We can actually start with the Supreme, the Supreme Court. And there's a whole thing about how there's a book that I've been bringing about how the system that produced the conservative Supreme Court that we have today, the John Roberts Court, who has always sided with the most conservative elements, who one of the great things that evolved from the Civil Rights Movement was the Voting Rights Act and the Civil Rights Act. Well, as I was saying, if you do a little history, there's always been the think tanks that supported a whole ideological framework of writers and so-called conservative intellectuals who have always been against and the Voting Rights Act. And because ultimately, if you take it into the future, if everything about voting rights works out the way it's supposed to, like if you had a moderate Supreme Court instead of this lunatic Supreme Court that we have now, it would mean the end of the conservative movement, because this country would evolve, become better educated. They would not tolerate a Fox disinformation state network of disinformation to tell people that vaccinations are, they shouldn't get vaccinated, or that public health is a matter of all of us having enough money for rural hospitals, that we have access to the best health care, and that it's not based on a corporate model like every other country in the world. In other words, America as what? A social democracy. They have fought social democracy, that is the system, and we're talking about the conservative element. And I'm sort of getting out of the left, right, the scheme of Democrats and Republicans, because once Citizens United happened, and long before there was Citizens United, there was John Roberts, and he was very much against the Civil Rights Movement, and he posed himself as a stealth moderate. But you can see what's happening right now. He is given the unitary executive theory that is giving all the power to Trump, and now that's out of control, and it's fed itself. And so we're in this really dangerous situation, the question of which, can it be reversed? And the answer is eventually, if we get 13 members of the Supreme Court, it will be reversed, because we have to outvote that conservative majority, because they are completely undemocratic. They have completely undermined the Constitution, and now they're protected. They know how bad it is themselves, but they're addicted to their own theology now, because they're also beneficiaries of that. The conservative members of the Supreme Court are getting wined and dined by billionaires, and they vote on issues. They don't take themselves out of votes that in fact are benefiting the very billionaires that have been whining and dining them. That's how this is corruption, and we're run by a corrupt system. Question is there enough of us to reverse that? And the answer is yes, there is. because so long as there's still the ability to vote the right people into office that represent our interests, that's the greatest threat to them, to this system that has gotten us into this mess. I mean, the greatest threat to the oligarchs and the conservative movement that has always been against voting rights and civil rights and women's rights and everything that's good against a national health care system. Every single one of them, their greatest fear is informed citizens, the informed citizen. And so that's what Megatrends here is, interacting with as many people out there. Please pass the word that this is what we do here. I take public service very seriously, and Megatrends takes it very seriously. Everything we do is all through the week, all the research, everything is devoted to not following the spikes and the headlines, but trying to get underneath to what would be solutions that we all can actually engage in collectively, so that we get what we need. We're going to have a fight, but they're still going to be there. They're going to do everything they can to undo the Civil Rights and the Voting Rights Act. But we still can outvote when people get angry enough and they realize that all of us, have something in common, conservatives and liberals. There's no such thing, socioeconomically, the 99% of us have more in common socioeconomically with each other. And so it should be also philosophically that we have in common, and should not allow, or let the conservatives do what they want. Let Texas do what they do. But you know what's going to happen in Texas? People they're going to get disappointed because people are going to outvote the gerrymandering, because it takes about a 60-40 majority to get a 50-50 split. So that's the numbers that we have to go for. We have to beat 60-40. But you know what? The numbers are looking much better than 60-40. If you look at the most recent polls, it's looking like about 2/3 to 1/3. So if we can maintain that, not only into the next, midterm elections, but even before that, if we can get if there could be enough retirees to get a slight majority for the Democrats in the House of Representatives, that's when everything flips. That's their greatest fear, the GOP's greatest fear. America has to realize its greatest enemy is the Republican Party, but also the corporate Democratic Party. Money in politics, that's the danger. We have to cease. We have to end Citizens United and reverse that. And now, question is, which comes first? What do we do first? Well, you know what? Tomorrow morning when you wake up, we're doing that. The next, No Kings rally, the next time you have a chance to vote, next time you have a chance to vote with your feet, the next time you have to interact with people in the community to be connected, that's how to do it. That's what we're doing. So, and we can't just rely on the John Mersheimers, I mean, he gets it mostly right, but, there's a paper written by James D. Fearon, F-E-A-R-O-N, and it's called The Rationalist Explanation for War. And it's the foundational piece of game theory modeling of war. It's like required reading for every international relations student. And the game theory modeling of war might be a useful assignment, even in K-12, to learn about that. And actually a return to having civics. Remember that for those of our age, we remember a course called civics that we had in middle school. and in high school. That once Reagan was in, it came in civics vanished, because they put pressure on the education system. Oh, this is propaganda. This is the New Deal propaganda. You're so-called progressivism. So the walk away is if the results of a potential war was certain, there wouldn't be a war at all. If the outcome of a war was certain, it would never happen. And who would fight a war with zero chance of winning? Why bother? Do you think all of those Ukrainian officers, generals, and spies are so uninformed that they risk their lives every day for something that has no chance at all? Of course, there's a chance for both sides to win something, and that's why they're both at it. It's a war that should never have been fought. And the reason why it got fought, you can even just go to the quote from the CEO of Lockheed Martin, when there was a chance to not have that war happen, that both Russia and Ukraine would have accepted, because no one really wanted that, but this is the CEO of Lockheed Martin. When there was an opportunity, the question came out, why don't we look, considering all these hundreds of billions of dollars that would be otherwise going for development of, feeding the war on both sides, because this is like an international money market thing for war. He said, turn swords into plowshares and put it into infrastructure and bullet trains and rebuilding bridges and healthcare. And so now he said, absolutely not. He says, is because war is a moneymaker. The CEO of Lockheed Martin, just a month before, that's when they had that one of those final meetings when they could have avoided any kind of war like that. So war is obsolete. We can't. We have to move to a point where we say we have to take the money, the incentive out of it, the profit making, because very well that just like you've heard them say, the same model for for Gaza is the same model, almost word for word, for what they want to do with Ukraine, and all of the concrete and steel and electrical and all of the construction folks are just looking for the hundreds of billions of dollars for the rebuild. That's how they're thinking. They're not thinking about the welfare of people, right? They're thinking about how much money we can make. So anyway, in our last minute, I just wanted to say Happy New Year. Let's rush to the finish line. And Megatrends will see me back, I think, 3 weeks from now, I think it is, right? So we're going to take a break, and I'll be back with some things. I may be headed to around, like I said I would, to visit some some places around the country and get as much information. Always, I'm feeding the next Megatrends show. So remember, I want to thank Jason Francisco and Pacific Coast TV, for their work and the studio work that they do here in Pacific, California. And I also want to thank Carol Denny for her great interview, and also Dave Littman every week. His grace. So much talent in this country. We can do this. We can. Let's use democracy in every level, not just voting at the ballot box, voting with our feet, voting and pulling people together and being connected with each other. That's voting too. Okay. So we'll see you next year, 2026. And that'll be the year we get to flip the script. So let's start there, and, have a great season's greetings in all the ways that they call season's greetings. So thank you very much. And we will see you in the new year. This is Pat Fahey and Megatrends signing off.